Hi and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of May 4th, 2020. First, let's do a really quick recap of the predictions for the previous week, the week of April 27th. In terms of the market direction, I thought that market will go down on Monday, and it actually went up on the 27th of April, that is Tuesday, and it went down as predicted, and on Thursday and Friday it went down as predicted. On Wednesday there was a rally, I guess, and so basically it's 3 out of 5 days, including the prediction for the drop on Thursday, Friday, followed by a reversal to up on Monday, the 4th of May. That had indeed happened as predicted. And specifically for Thursday, Friday, it was predicting increased focus on oil, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and things like that. So all of these Neptunian topics, basically. And indeed, and I guess this was not necessarily a prediction, as in if you were following any news, you probably had seen that Monday, or rather May 1st, Friday, is when the agreement by OPEC members and Russia had come in effect about reducing the oil production. And of course we have ongoing predictions and ongoing news and focus on pharmaceuticals because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Among general predictions that I have ongoing for this year, we have prediction of increased seismic activity, earthquakes, and various kind of situations that involve either collapse of, say, old building or some large buildings or old structures, and or also either collapse or reshuffling at the tops of governments, corporations, leaders who have been in power for a long time being replaced or moving, and basically major changes in leadership. So this last week we did have quite a few earthquakes. Some of them were large in, I guess, scale, like 6.6 in Greece, and there were several that were, I guess, there was also another 6.0 in Japan. There were also some that were category like 5 something, but because they were in the areas that were fairly densely populated, they were felt more strongly. We have 5.7 in Peru, 5.1 in Taiwan, and 5.5 in Puerto Rico. There was also an eruption last Monday on the 27th of April of the Kulchevskaya Sopka volcano. So I would say last week was fairly busy, and this should continue. This kind of increased seismic activity should continue through the end of this year. In terms of major leaders basically being replaced or experiencing some sort of difficulties, there was news about, I guess, on May, it was, I guess this is already, we're rolling into this week, but there was news about on May 4th that the NBC News chairman Andy Lack is going to step down after a series of scandals, and they will also be doing some sweeping corporate restructuring that will consolidate several of their networks into one division. And there was also, I guess I'll get back to that when we talk about this week. So let's see, and among predictions that were specifically for previous week was that I was predicting for the 28th of April that we can experience sort of news, increased concerns about cash flow, increased news about financial agreements, financial institutions and financial regulations. And on the 29th of April, there was news that Federal Reserve is going to keep its benchmark interest rate around 0 to help economy recover. Again, I didn't know that there was going to be an announcement by Federal Reserve just because I don't, I guess, keep close track of the news. I'm just looking for headlines at the end of the week when I put together these videos. But of course, this would not have been a prediction if somebody already knew that there was going to be a statement by Federal Reserve. However, it is useful to point out that certain transits astrological transits do correspond with certain events of the same nature as one would predict based on the, I guess, archetypal meanings and interpretations given traditionally to those transits in astrology. So let's see, and in terms of the focus on the pharmaceuticals and drugs, I specifically made a prediction for April 30th through April 4th. There might be some news about some medicine skyrocketing or falling dramatically in price. And I didn't see necessarily that kind of news about price of the medicine. However, on the 29th, there was some news about the positive news or news about, I guess, performance of this drug, remdesivir, that was being tested on COVID-19 patients, about it supposedly performing as expected. And then on May 1st, indeed, there was a news that the that drug was received emergency authorization from FDA. And while there is no news, or there are no news about necessarily the pricing of this drug, there's some estimates. However, I would imagine that it will affect the profits from it based on this approval that again was granted on May 1st, exactly when we had this really major aspect between a particular square between Venus, which is money, earnings, profits, and Neptune, which is again drugs, chemicals, oil, etc. And that's also when the May 1st is also when the production cuts had begun based on this OPEC agreement. Let's see, other predictions that I made for the previous week were that April 30th through May 1st we'll see surprising or sudden developments related to airspace, cars, electric cars in particular, IT, high-tech, electric, electric power companies, electronic gadgets, etc., and also related to finance and banks. And I specifically mentioned that there might be some strong winds related to outages or accidents, or sudden attacks, or there may be some service disruptions, or just some surprising developments. So with respect to weather, I saw briefly, I'm not sure how major weather event it was, but there was news on the 1st of May about high winds causing cell towers in Pune, India to collapse. And also on the 1st of May, there were some news basically that Elon Musk had sent out a bunch of tweets saying that Tesla stock price was too high, and subsequently the stock of the Tesla dropped by 10% that day, as of the closing of the business trading day. And let's see, so then I also made a prediction, and that was in the weekly sort of global prediction section, that on off all year and we will have increased focus on either governmental regulations or building and reorganizing some structures that will involve changes in leadership and restructuring, again, large corporations, governmental sort of reshuffling, and that there will be some shakeups at the top, especially in the areas related to like communication, transportation, retail sales, associated with either filings for bankruptcies or some scandals and whistleblowers and things like that. And so indeed we had quite a few news coming up, and again this already gets into this week, May 4th, that J.Crew declared bankruptcy. Then same day, on the 4th of May, we had news that Hertz was preparing to potentially file for bankruptcy if they couldn't get an extension of a grace period on the missed payment. And as I said already earlier, there was news that NBC news chairman had to step down specifically because of the series of scandals. There's some lingering allegations linked to misconduct and sexual harassment. And finally, there was also news again on the 4th of May that a senior Amazon software engineer had resigned after like 5 years with the company because he was upset about Amazon's decision to apparently fire critics of its labor practices. So we had these basically news that I believe do fit with a lot of the predictions that I made. And now coming on to this week, as I said before, some ongoing influences are background influences and increased probability of reshuffling at the top of corporations, governments, etc., changes in leadership, and also, and that will be especially felt actually in August, which will also be accompanied by potentially announcements of bankruptcies or some problems with financing, or government having to either take over or bail out somebody in the US. And as I said, for the US especially, August, and within August 13th through 21st of August may be important dates, but the entire year and even into next year it will be an important sort of a topic. For China, also August 9 and 17th, 9th through the 17th will be important dates, which also can see some intense activities, and for China it will be more related to healthcare, pharmaceuticals, navy, secretive activities, chemicals, oil pollution, recycling, etc. In terms of the ongoing prediction about the seismic activity, sort of for this week, the worst days are May 4th and 5th. Let's see, then we have also focus on, in the US, focus through, I guess, July 7th on international agreements, negotiations, diplomatic relations, partnerships, and things like that. And again, specifically related to like retail sales and communication, transportation, sort of those are the areas where the most news may come out of, as well as news potentially about continuing sort of reshuffling of power at the top, either engaging in manipulative activities, or there's some scandals, or a whistleblower comes up and the company, you know, will need to change how they operate or restructure things, or in general the news may just come up more, again, related to bankruptcies or some sort of international agreements, or some changes on how something is operating or restructuring. And if it's either a company that's, say, a retail company that's related to communication, transportation, but the topic or the reason for restructuring is some sort of secretive activity or lack of money or some sort of misconduct, or it may not be any of these kind of unsavory activities, but the companies themselves that are involved and having to undergo restructuring or leadership changes are involved in doing something underground, such as mining, coal companies, trash recycling, or nuclear power. And let's see, for coronavirus outbreak and news from China, I believe there still will be more waves of kind of focus on this topic, and particularly August or November 2020 seem to be quite important, where there may be some more sort of transformations of the status quo, where either more announcements come out about how things are going, maybe another wave of deaths, for example, or if not that, then some news where some solution to the crisis is found, or maybe some radical measures are taken to prevent something like this from occurring in the future, or changes in either healthcare or some sort of reform that has to do with how those laboratories are operating. But particularly, like I said, August through November of this year, and within those dates, especially July 6th through 24th, and then October 26th through November 20th. And finally, for oil prices on the 4th and 5th, I think there may be May 4th and 5th increase again news about the sales of oil and gas and focus on the prices. But then after that, I think things will be a little bit calmer. And again, I guess at 4th and 5th also, basically I'm expecting, right now the final price may not quite be settled. There may still be this fuzziness about what the real price should be. Is it properly valued or not? But in upcoming weeks, there will be an important period where there may be some more fighting over what oil prices either should be, or there may be fighting first and subsequent change in oil prices because something is burning, or there's an attack or some disruption, And that would be more around June 8th through 15th, especially June 10th and 11th, at which time we may see increased news about oil prices associated with news about like various upsets, accidents, explosions, burning of oil or gas, fighting over oil, gas leaks, and there was an explosion or something like that. And or similarly, there may just also be increase of news about anything to do with like Neptunian topics such as, fighting over pharmaceuticals or fire at the marina or explosion of a volcano that's surrounded by water, or even an underwater volcano, or shooting that's involving, Navy or ships somehow, or an accident, on a cruise ship, or another situation where we have this, some sort of disease outbreak on a cruise ship or something along those lines. As far as market direction, I believe pretty much this will be an up week. It's a slight, preference for up versus down, so it's not going to be this great rally necessarily, but I think every day the probability of it market going up is greater than down, especially for Monday the 4th, because again, this is a reversal day from the influence on Thursday and Friday the week prior. Also for Monday the 4th, I predicted that there will be increased focus on finance, banks, currencies, monetary policies, and earnings. Then also on the 4th and 5th, increased focus continuing, I guess, from last week on the value of oil, gas, chemicals, etc. But again, at this time, things are a little bit fuzzy. This may not be the final direction. Things may still change, and especially the big move again mid-June sometime may still come with respect to, again, oil, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, etc. For US, May 4th through 21st, and especially the 8th and the 18th, and then July 27th through 30th, may see positive news such as improved earnings, additional funding, increased value, some permissions are granted, or other beneficial developments related to sports, racing, engines, military, as well as stock market, entertainment activity, and casinos. So either things say they're open back to business, or they're allowed to do something that they always wanted to do. Maybe again, some of these sports events perhaps may be allowed to, take place, or there's additional funding or some sort of financial support, etc. For Wednesday, May 6th, I think there was an increased probability of surprising or sudden news and developments related to finance, earnings, banks, stock value, debt loans, as well as IT, electric cars, electric gadgets, telecoms, power plants, aerospace, etc. And at that time, which is again Wednesday, May the 6th, there might be some turnabouts or some sort of either stop and go where, either there's an unexpected cancellation or some project or something that was going to be implemented and is actually implemented faster than expected. Some decisions are reached faster, or the decision that was previously reached, suddenly there's, like I said, a turnabout where the project is suddenly a no-go, like a fast developing situation. For US, May 6th through 9th, especially the 7th and the 8th, seem to be important, and there may be, I guess, globally, but specifically related to US, and this may have to do with either US currency value and or value monetary policies, but basically May 6th through 7th, May 6th through 9th, and especially 7th and 8th of May see a major drop in gold prices, especially against, like I said, USD, and or there may be a large swing in gold prices regardless of the direction. And at the same time, I expect increased ability of US value fluctuations, and especially against like euro, and or an important announcement related to US monetary policy, or announcement or some move by banks or related to loan, debts, rates, earnings, etc. And let's see, and at the same time for the US, at that time there might also be increased news about, like I said, the stock market, but also partnership agreements with other countries and some sort of military activities, again related to finance, so maybe funding for the military, profitable agreements somehow involving weapons maybe, or financial deals, again could involve military weapons, something like that. And for China, May 6th through 8th also happen to be important dates where they may focus on earnings, international relations, long distance, shipments and transportation. At that time for China, there may be some minor disappointments, such as maybe international agreement is not proceeding in sort of direction that they would prefer, or the earnings are lower than expected, especially in the areas related to retail sales, communication, transportation, food production, and real estate. So in terms of glance ahead, I have this section in my weekly blog at lastunka.com where I post things on Sunday, usually of each week. On May 19th through 22nd, there may be again increased focus on oil, gas, chemicals, etc., and possibly a strong market drop on May 20th and 22nd. Then May 25 through 27 may see some increased kind of a bad weather with like strong winds, too much precipitation, etc. But also important news about oil, gas, chemicals, etc. And the market, those particular stressful news may bring market down, especially on the 26th of May. Then May 31st through June 5th of this year, especially June 1st and 2nd, may see increased global rise in international tensions or some important geopolitical events. Like I said, the changes in the power at the top of some country, or seismic events like some increased earthquakes. At the same time, gold may also be in focus, and there may be some suspension or some sort of a issue where we're waiting for something to clear to be able to evaluate, I guess, the proper value of gold. Or there's something that for like a period of 5 days where things, either gold prices don't change, which again, why would they not change? I guess they will change slightly, but it's almost like something is suspended, waiting on something else, because some situation is kind of unfolding very slowly, or there is kind of a lack of clarity. Either it has to do with earnings or the leadership at some company or country. But for some reason, I think there may be either increased news or it's an ongoing situation. Maybe there's a mine where they're mining gold and they just can't get people out for 5 days or something like that. For something that it is an ongoing issue where there's almost no change, and because it's hanging or hinging on some other decision. But again, at the same time, increased earthquake activity is possible, or some accidents related to like, mudslides, bridge collapse, even a mining accident perhaps, and or some geopolitical just tensions in the world. As I mentioned, June 8th through 15th may see increased fighting either over oil or that involves oil, pharmaceuticals, infectious diseases, or just even drugs, poisons, facilities for healthcare, hospitals, mental health care facilities, monasteries. So maybe like some sort of a riot at a prison, like I said, marina fire, gas leak explosion, etc., or even an attack on a oil processing facility, etc. And that may bring markets down, probably most, notably June 10 and 11. And then for July 20th or 22nd for the US, those seem to be important but stressful days, with potentially stressful news about leadership coming up, or some problems for prominent persons, maybe some actor or something experiencing some issues. And there at the same time there may be increased disagreements or heightened conflicts with international partners. And at that time there may be a large move, possibly a drop on July 20th and 21st. Then July 26th through 29th, there may be again increased focus on sales of oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, even beverage companies or video audio equipment, etc. And at the same time also increased news about like navy, ships, transportation over water, water pollution, religion, mental health, beverages, poisons, etc. Again, all of these Neptunian subjects yet again will be prominently featured, and some surrounding some stressful situation, either earnings are decreased, or there is no finance, or some purchase, some sort of agreement cannot go through, or shipment can go through, or again some prices of some medicine may change dramatically, like go up a lot or go down a lot. And or there even may be news about some prominent religious figure or an actor who gains attention through either overspending or donating or mishandling large sums of money. And because of this either uncertainty or some confusion, there may be a large drop in the markets on July 27th. And lastly, July 28th through 31st, so previously what I just said, July 26th or 29th, that was global. And for the US, also end of July, July 28th through 31st, may see now specifically increased focus on oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, etc. in the US, as well as like marine life, religion, water pollution, and also real estate, food production, and homeland security. And there also may be some concerns, such as concerns over decreased earnings, loss of value, lack of financing, or excessive prices on associated, products. So let's see, so that was pretty much a wrap for me, and I hope this was not too overwhelming. As I said before, I have a blog at lastunka.com where all of this is published in written form, so you can go and read it at your own pace. And other than that, I hope this was fun and you'll come back and check me out next week. Until then, bye everyone, have a great one.